Hello, everybody. This is my new blog broadcast, and I'm going to be using a software called Zoom, which has an amazing capacity to do a lot of different things. As you can see, the backdrop is beautiful. Um, I want to do some blogs. Each week, I'm going to put up a different blog, and I think this week we're going to talk about one of the most important pathological problems that I found in a long time. Over the years, I've seen this type of pathology, and the information that's coming out to the public is really tainted and it's really poor. So I definitely want to set this straight for the record. I treat a lot of thyroid patients. About 10 years ago, I started having weight loss, doing a lot of weight loss, HCG, ketogenic diet, different weight loss programs. And I saw some patients were just completely recalcitrant. They would not lose weight no matter what you did. And I was very curious about this, and they were very upset, and they wanted to lose weight. So little by little, I started looking at a 20-page lab report for a lot of these patients. And, you know, we have quite a few markers on there. We're doing 7 thyroid labs. We're doing all the rest of your hormones. We have some genetic markers. We have a whole page for cardio. We have a whole page for diabetes. We have vitamins on there. We have your basic labs you normally get. So to really do, I've done probably 1,000 of these panels over the last 5 years. We can start to see a lot of patterns, and that's what I was looking for. And I could see a big pattern was when anybody had any kind of hypothyroidism or subclinical hypothyroidism, as I call it, which is basically most doctors in the world are just measuring your TSH. And so that's all they're measuring. The TSH is a very poor marker. The high end of the TSH is 4.5, and I found patients have symptoms at 1.5. And if you look at Wilson's work, Wilson syndrome, he was one of our professors. He'll tell you the same thing. And he's a brilliant man. So we studied his work quite a bit, and then we've taken it into our own practices now and are using it. But the TSH in my book should never be over 1 to 1.5. So like 0.5 to 1.5, that's when people are completely optimized. When I treat my patients, I want them to be optimal. I want them to be like superheroes. You know, I want them to be really, really strong. I want them to be no stress. Any stress is no big deal to them. They can work 20 hours a day sometimes, as long as they get a good night's sleep the next night. They can get 5 hours, 6 hours sleep. They can deal with it. They're entrepreneurs. They are the leaders in society, many of my patients. So if there's a thyroid issue, even if it's subclinical, which means it's just falling below the line that would be detected usually, we have to fix this, because this is one of the biggest problems in the body. For one thing, if you have any kind of subclinical hypothyroidism, even if it's just a little bit, your hair is going to be falling out. So you won't look very, very good. And my patients, not only do they want to feel good, but they want to look great. And that's what I make sure happens for them. So your hair is going to be falling out. Your skin is going to get rough, and it's not going to look very pretty anymore. Your cycles, women's cycles will be longer, a lot more bleeding, hypertension. You're going to be tired. You're going to be so fatigued sometimes you don't even want to sit down for 1 second because you're going to fall asleep and you're not going to be able to wake up. A lot of the hypothyroid patients constantly moving around. That's one of the insignias of hypothyroidism. If you're doing that all the time, come see me. You may probably have some kind of thyroid pathology that many other doctors, let's say, have said your thyroid's fine when it isn't. I'll be able to detect it. I can detect the needle in the haystack, and we can always do more labs. So depression is also a big thing with thyroid, and it's a hardwired depression that you can't get out of, so it's really bad. Also, I've seen many, many labs that can correlate that your lipids, your fats are all going to go up. So your triglycerides are going to be high, your LDL is going to be high, your HDL could be low, your total cholesterol will be high. And then we break them down into subfractionations with the lab I'm using, because LDL and HDL aren't just good and bad. There's different parts in each one. And the LDL especially has some very small, densely packed particles which stick very easily to the walls of the arteries and lay down plaque much faster than, say, some of the bigger particles that kind of just bounce around in the blood. So we're looking for that. So that when you do your lipids, we're getting like 10 to 15 different labs just on your fats alone. Typically, most labs you're getting from Quest or LabCorp, you're getting 4 fats and a glucose. And I hate to tell you, but half those patients that are normal have had heart attacks. So this isn't, it's not an exact science with the lipids anymore. And I don't think cholesterol is the end all be all. it's the inflammation, but I don't want to go into that today. So when you have hypothyroidism for long periods of time that's undiagnosed, you're constantly accumulating a lot more fat and a lot more plaque in your arteries. Your inflammatory markers are going sky high. Your C-reactive protein, your LP little a, any kind of inflammatory markers, we're measuring all of them, as many as we can, because that's where I see the pathology with inflammation. The more inflammation, the more pathology. Also, your insulin could be really high as well. That's from eating sugar or fast food or things like that. But with a low thyroid, a lot of times every reaction in the body starts to slow down. And then, so my understanding, this may be not such a scientific estimate, but I think this is what's happening as the thyroid slows down. I call my patients turtle. You're turning into a turtle, and your blood is slowing down. And the colloidal dispersion that goes through your veins, which is circling all the time, has a lot of particles. And it's supposed to be at a certain speed. So your pulse needs to be between 70, 80, and even 90. Your blood pressure needs to be normal. And if it's not, if your pulse is going down because your thyroid is slowing down, everything's slowing down, then my understanding, without doing research, but I think this is what's happening, is a lot of those particles are starting to stick to the walls because they're not going through the blood in the proper manner that a colloidal dispersion would be going through the way it's supposed to. Many things happen with this. You can't lose any weight. And I've seen people put on weight like pound after pound after pound. And they come to me and say, Dr. Churchill, I'm not eating as much as I used to. And I'm eating less than I've ever eaten. And I'm still gaining weight. And I'm only eating like 1,000 calories a day and I'm still gaining weight. It doesn't make any sense to me for a long time. But those same patients have told me the exact same thing. I can make a recording and play it back to the person, and they would probably burst into tears saying, exactly, that's what's happening to me. And I've been bouncing around to all these doctors and nobody's been able to figure it out. And I'm not saying I'm the end all be all. I'm sure there's a lot of naturopaths that know exactly what I'm talking about, but there are just not that many of us in the world. And there's so many great functional MDs and DOs as well. I'm sure if they went through A4M or an Institute for Functional Medicine, they know exactly what I'm talking about, but they're just not that many. So we see all these patients suffering needlessly for a long time. And one of the other big reasons why they're suffering is because they're put on Synthroid. Synthroid, in my estimate, is probably one of the worst drugs in the world. And I believe that Synthroid is causing a pandemic of subclinical hypothyroidism, and is causing a lot of the heart disease and strokes that we're seeing in the United States and maybe even in the world today. I believe that patients are put on Synthroid for long-term. They're always told they're fine because their TSH is fine. And as we spoke before, if the TSH is over 1.5, I've seen full-blown symptoms of hypothyroidism. And I've also tested this, and I've given them thyroid hormones starting at a very low dose, ramping them up. And most of them say that 99% say they feel much better. And we even go to 1, even 2 grains of Nature Throid a lot of times, or Armor, and they're fine. And I'm going to tell you, a patient that doesn't need thyroid hormone, they come back at you and say, Dr. Churchill, why did you give me that? I feel horrible. I'm never going to take it again. And it's rare. It rarely happens. They always need it. But we start at a very low dose. And what we also do to ascertain that is we'll take their temperatures. So in Europe, this is a big thing. If you use the basal body temperature, that means the temperature at rest, and you look at the numbers over a course of a month or so, and you do it first thing in the morning before they get out of bed, or I believe Wilson's doing it an hour later and then another hour later. Any of those scenarios are great. And you have them really be careful and mark it down on a sheet. You're going to get some amazing data. At the same time, we tell them to take their pulse, just in case we are possibly over-medicating them, that they wouldn't know it. And usually they will feel terrible, but some people, they're not so in tune with their body. So we get the pulse and the temperature. We get it every day for a month or two. And as I'm using the thyroid hormone, I'm titrating up little by little, getting them off the Synthroid. Another amazing drug, and this is really good for Hashimoto's, is the sustained release T3. We use a high dose of sustained release T3, like 25 to 30 micrograms twice a day. And sometimes I put a little bit of T4 in there, like 2.5 or 5 in the very beginning, because most of those patients who have Hashimoto's can't take any T4 at that time. It just puts them in the bed. I've had some people go into the bed after just 2.5 or 5 milligrams of T4. Those are the full-blown cases. So from my estimate, what we're usually doing is the sustained release T3 for a while with some of the T4. As they get better, as we fix the gut, as we decrease the inflammation, as we get the autoimmunity down, their body starts working, their thyroid starts working again. They don't have as much inflammation. They're getting the thyroid hormone is actually going into and being accepted by the receptors, because that's the big issue. It's not so much a lot of times your thyroid isn't making the hormone, it's that it can be making it. Well, it might not be converting it, because that's another big factor. And if you're going to get any T3, which is the active form, 80% active, and your T4 is only 20% active. So, we have to start to quell the inflammation, fix the gut, fix the autoimmunity. When we do that, the conversion's better, your thyroid makes more hormone. But the big thing is the hormones start to get accepted in every receptor. Every cell in your body has a thyroid receptor. It's a very, very important gland. I think for feeling good and for looking good, it's the most important gland in the body. And it is like a canary in a coal mine. It can go off very easily. Any amount of toxicity, any amount of heavy metals, a lot amount of stress, birth control pills, cortisol, all these block the conversion of T4 to T3. Sorry, I'm rambling a bit. Okay, let's get back on track. So we're using the sustained release T3 and a little bit of T4 or no T4 for a month or so. I will definitely put the T4 in because I don't want them to just be on T3. That's not what we want. But we're checking their pulse, we're checking their temperature, and we're checking their labs. We're running labs about every month at that point, just the thyroid panel to double check. Most of these patients will go up to 98 degrees. They'll come in at 96.5, 97.2, 97, whatever, but they will not be anywhere near 97.5. Typically, they'll be below 97.5 because 97.5 to 98 typically could be adrenal. Below 97.5, almost always thyroid. Thyroid, it regulates your metabolism. It regulates if you're hot or cold. It regulates many processes in the body. How you burn. It's like the carburetor, and then the gasoline going through the carburetor. How fast you're going to burn your calories, and that basically means how fast you're going to lose or gain weight. So basically, we're starting out with that small amounts of the thyroid hormone, and then that works really well. I've seen that work 80 to 90% of the time. When we fix the gut, we decrease inflammation, we do some IVs, we put some peptides in there, we fix their hormones, we do a lot of hormone bioidenticals. The patients within 6 months, that's a long time. Usually 3 to 6 months are feeling like their old selves again. And then we strip off a lot of the stuff. We don't want to keep them on so many. It's not polypharmacy here, not in my practice. I don't want to do that. I just want to target, get in and out, and get them feeling better, but also help them change their lifestyle. Because many, many times this is from lifestyle problems. Okay, that's all I want to talk about today. Next time, we'll talk about lifestyle changes you can implement to make your thyroid work better so that you can, lose the weight you want to lose, be able to think. I forgot to say before, but when you have a low thyroid, your brain starts to get mushy. They can't think that well. They have foggy brain. Sometimes it takes them like 3 or 4 minutes to understand one sentence that I've just said. And many times, if it's a full-blown Hashimoto's patient with high antibodies for a long time, they'll come into my office and they literally won't understand anything in that visit. Nothing. They'll go home with a bag of stuff. They'll say, yes, yes, yes. And they'll come back in a couple of weeks after they take the thyroid home and say, I feel better now. I can't believe I was in your office. I didn't understand anything you said. It really hurts your cognition and your memory and your processing speed in your brain. The thyroid is massively important for everything. So thank you. Have a wonderful day today. And I will talk to you again soon.